Let's get started. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining Side by Side Agency's virtual event on career exploration. This workshop will be focusing on the topic of women in STEM, and we ask that everyone please stay muted and switch off your video throughout this session. Since this is a virtual event, there might be some technical difficulties. Please be patient with us, and we thank you ahead for your cooperation. My name is Ashley, and I'm one of the three co-founders of Side by Side Agency. And before I share our agenda and introduce our panelists today, I would like to share a little bit about Side by Side. So Side by Side was started in late April as a response to COVID-19 to help students adjust to online learning. We initially only provided free tutoring services to K-12 students. However, we wanted Side by Side to continue to grow even after COVID-19, so we created the mentorship program to help high school students and incoming first years gain a better understanding of post-secondary education pathways. And in addition to our tutoring and mentorship services, we also have a tremendous amount of resources on various topics that can be found on our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and our website. To sign up for the mentorship program, please follow the link which I've included in the chat. And once you sign up for the mentorship program, we personally match students to mentors based on academic needs and interests. Of course, you may also request a particular mentor by checking out our mentor profiles on our website and Instagram. And essentially, your mentor becomes your support system where they will help you have a better and well-rounded understanding about university, your program of interest, and just general post-secondary education and career-related questions. As well, you will get exclusive access to our future workshops such as resume and CV, interview prep, or pre-law info sessions. And now how this workshop will run is that each of our panelists will introduce themselves, and then we'll dive into the panel presentation where our panelists will go further into detail about their opportunities and experiences of being a woman in STEM. And then we will open the floor up to audiences to ask your question. And something to note is that throughout this workshop, if you do happen to have a question, please send the question through the chat at any time. And if you feel more comfortable, you can also directly message me individually. And if you have a question for a particular panelist, please indicate that in your question. And afterwards, in the Q&A section, we will go over them. Now, if you're wondering why we're doing this workshop, here's a little introduction to women in STEM. And while it might seem like equality has been reached when it comes to gender and choosing a major or career path, it really hasn't been. To put this into perspective, only 34% of STEM bachelor's degrees in Canada are held by women, and only 23% of STEM jobs are held by women. And that's a really low number. So why is it such a big deal? Well, STEM jobs are often higher paying and faster growing while other careers become obsolete. As well, diversity within a department fosters innovation and growth. And you might be thinking, what about life sci? Every girl I know goes into life sci or health sci. And while women have made moves in the life sciences field, they still face lower pay and many other gender-based discrepancies. For example, a recent study demonstrated how women in research were publishing much less than men during the COVID-19 pandemic as a result of household duties. As many of you know, publishing in the research field can be quite competitive, so this can be really detrimental to these researchers' careers. This phenomenon of less women in STEM has been around for quite a while, and extensive research has been done, yet changes have yet to be seen. A commonly used metaphor is that there are leaks in the STEM pipeline between high school and uni, or uni and grad school, or grad school and the workforce. Often there are lots of women interested in STEM in high school, but there aren't many female grads or female workers in the workforce. Therefore, for those that argue it's a woman's nature to do certain jobs and not others, can see that it's more so nurture. That was a really quick intro, but I just wanted to give you some context as to why we wanted to hold today's panel. And we are so happy you guys are all taking the time to come today, and we hope everyone will pursue STEM careers and prove that women can do anything. And now let's start off with some introductions.
Hi, my name is Chloe. I'm going into my second year of engineering science at the University of Toronto.
Hey everyone, I'm Nika. I'm going into my third year of biomedical engineering at Ryerson University. Hi everyone, I'm Vicky. I'm doing my Master of Science at the University of Toronto at Mississauga.
Okay, once again, please feel free to ask your questions to the chat, and if you have a question for a particular panelist, please indicate that in your question as well.
So I guess, like I said, I'm in engineering science, but I guess like I have a really big love for entrepreneurship and innovation. So throughout the summer, I got to work with some startups and kind of get to learn that field, even though it's not really related to engineering. So throughout my first year, I got to get involved with a lot of things like WISE, which is a Women in Science and Engineering chapter at U of T. I got to be involved on the Engineering Society as first year chair, and I got to be involved, I guess, with some councils around U of T. And I guess one piece of advice that I have, especially for first years, is definitely prioritize your mental health, because first year is definitely a big shift from high school.
Okay, now we have Mika.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm going into my third year of biomedical engineering at Ryerson. In the future, I definitely want to pursue my Professional Engineers of Ontario certification, or as most commonly known, my PEng. And I eventually love to pursue a PhD, specifically research regarding brain-computer interfaces in the field. Also, I'd love to teach. In my 2 years at Ryerson, I've yet to have a female prof, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. In terms of extracurriculars, I'm currently the director for our Ryerson Engineering Musical. I'm also the president of our Engineers Without Borders Ryerson chapter, as well as working on some of the operation committees for our Engineering Student Society. My advice to you all is, in first year, whatever program you're in, take the time to adjust to the pace of university and take the time to get to know yourself all over again and to find your learning style. And now I'll pass it on to Vicky.
Great. Hi, so like I said, I'm doing my Master of Science specifically in ecology and evolutionary biology. And in the future, I want to do my PhD and then eventually either do research with the government or with NGO or with academia, or do data scientist work, and they're not mutually exclusive. As for extracurriculars, I'm a mentor for several different outreach groups and organizations. I also sit on 2 graduate student societies, and I'm on 2 different biology department committees, so that's faculty and grad students. I'm also the Let's Talk Science site coordinator for UTM, and I do a lot of outreach with other groups as well, such as the Canadian Association for Girls in Science. And I also am the exec member of 2 different sports clubs. So one is a table tennis club and one is a dragon boat team. And my advice would be to really explore your options in first year. You have tons of time in your second, third, fourth year to really dig into what you like, but also find your support network. So whether that's a mentor in your program or whether that's someone in your life who's really supportive, that person or those people can be really helpful for you.
Awesome, thank you.
We're moving on to the panel presentation.
Yep, so we're gonna start with a couple of questions. And our first question is, what made you decide on your program? And starting off, we have Vicky.
So my mom actually worked in academia. She was a researcher at UBC. So that definitely did help me decide that I wanted to do research. And when I entered first year, I knew I didn't want to do med or work in medicine. And so because of that, I got the chance to explore a lot of different sciences and see research in many different fields, whether that's social sciences or ecology. And I also had a lot of different mentors in undergrad. So I worked in several different labs where there were other grad students who were willing to take me on. And I did a couple of research projects that were just my own. And so I sought out a lot of help from women in my field who were willing to take the chance on me. And now I'll pass it on to Chloe.
Yeah, so something about engineering was like, for me, it was actually kind of accidental. I did not really pick engineering, or I did not really think I was going to go into engineering until like I started applying for uni. And that was like the October or September of my grade 12 year. So that was definitely a big shift. But I think what really impacted my decision was that I wanted to go into life sci, but then I discovered I really like solving problems and I like doing innovative things. And that kind of attracted me towards engineering just because I get to really put my hands into work and kind of get to build really cool stuff throughout the way. So I guess that's why I chose engineering. But what chose U of T specifically was the program. So engineering specifically is a 2-year program where you don't have a major. So I'm still going into my second year. So I get to still choose what I want to do afterwards. And I knew that this would give me enough time to kind of explore my interests and see what I wanted to do. I'll pass it on to Nika.
Yeah, so when I was in grade 11 and I took physics for the first time, after I finished, I hated it. But I always grew up really liking math. And so I convinced myself, I was like, I'm not doing anything with physics. I told all my friends, I was like, if I take grade 12 physics, like make sure I don't do it. And then when I took biology in grade 11, I really enjoyed it, but the math component was missing. And I realized, okay, like maybe I should take physics in grade 12 just in case. I ended up really enjoying it in grade 12, but I also enjoyed all the other science. I really had a passion for biology, chemistry, and physics and math. And then I discovered biomedical engineering, and I found that that really encompasses everything that I'm interested in and I'm passionate about. When I discovered that it's offered at Ryerson, and because it's close to home and it's actually been at Ryerson for a really long time and it's not offered at a lot of Ontarian universities, I found that it was the perfect fit, and I'm actually really happy with where I'm at. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Now we're going to talk about some incidents or experiences you guys felt when you guys faced when you felt microaggressions or felt marginalized because you're a woman in STEM. And starting off, we have Nika.
Yeah, so when I was in first year, I actually got mistaken for a nursing student a couple of times. I walked into a physics lecture one day and I asked this guy just to make sure that I was in the right class and in the right place. And he turns to me and he's like, this isn't a nursing class. And I was like, I know, I'm an engineering student. What I've found being like a woman in STEM, specifically in engineering, is that nobody will flat out tell you that you can't be an engineer because you're a woman, but it's little things like how they talk to you, how they kind of, during labs, they don't really expect you to know what to do and they kind of take control. You kind of have to work twice as hard to be heard and to prove yourself as like your male counterparts, which is something that it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of the situation. And now I would love to hear from Vicky about any of her experiences.
So there's a lot of hearsay in academia about profs specifically outright saying that they will not take a female in their lab. They don't want a woman in their lab. And they'll kind of back that up by saying, oh, we do a lot of field work. You need to be able to lift heavy things or go to remote places, which like, I don't know why that would exclude women, but okay. As for myself, I have felt marginalized in situations where I look to positions of power or look to people who are further in their career trajectory, and I see that they're all males, like white men. And so this kind of academic pipeline, that's kind of where you go from an undergrad population where it's like pretty 50-50 to grad school to academia, and you kind of see that drop in women. I've sat in a couple of different meetings where men will repeat ideas that women have proposed and they'll get the credit for it. And I've also seen like firsthand situations where professors will go easier on guys who've made mistakes in their research or who've made mistakes in their lab. But when women make the same mistakes or make lighter mistakes, that the professors will kind of be a little harsher on them and ask them why they weren't prepared or why they made that mistake in the first place. And so like there are a lot of situations where women and where I have felt marginalized or have felt microaggressions in academia. And now I'm going to pass it on to Chloe, who might have other experiences.
Yeah, so So something I found was that in first year, whenever I tried to maybe ask for help, that was when I really got kind of some microaggressions. So one time was like in the lab, and I was asking like, "Hey, like the printer's not showing up." Um, and honestly, it was just a simple question like, "Why is it not showing up?" But they felt the need to help me, so they tried to barge in and take the computer from me and be like, "No, you got to print it. Like it's right here." And it's like literally like, "Why did you have to grab it off of me?" I literally just asked a question. So that was one way, and definitely just standing up for yourself at that moment was one thing that helped. I noticed too, sometimes in team settings, similar to the other panelists, was definitely like when you're in a team, like you have to reiterate sometimes your points because you won't hear it. I felt always time like my ideas were never heard, and then immediately I would be right at the end, and I'd be like pissed or something. So that was like some ways of microaggressions I felt.
And our next question is, what has your university and community done to increase visibility of women identifying people in STEM?
So right now, I sit on a couple of different committees, and one of them is a working group where we try to hire a more diverse group of faculty. So as just an example, women, when they like hand over their CVs, a lot of the time, people on these like search committees for faculty will always say like, oh, this woman probably got here because she rode the coattails of someone else, or like she overcame these barriers to be here. Like there is a lot of negative language, whereas when men apply for the same jobs, there's a lot more positive language that's like attributed to them. And so because I'm on this working group for the faculty, we're trying to figure out ways to hire more diverse like professors basically. So like Nika was saying, how there was no female professor in her like last 2 years in her program. Like that's an issue that we're trying to fix in our department. We also are trying to invite more female seminar speakers. So we have a seminar series, and so a couple years ago, I think the ratio was like 80% male to 20% female. Last year it was 50-50. So like we're trying to get somewhere with that. And also, there are tons of outreach groups that I'm either a part of or I've helped out with that are catered specifically to women. So, for example, there are research grants that women can apply to that is like just for them. There are like coding workshops that are just for women, and there's a lot of outreach groups for young girls. Like, for example, I work with the Canadian Association for Girls in Science, and so that's specifically science outreach for girls aged 6 to 18 to show them all the potential that they can find in STEM fields. I'm going to pass it over to Nika.
So what's really great about Ryerson is that they really market themselves as being a diverse university, and that is the reality. You'll see a lot of people from different backgrounds, different ways people identify themselves. Like that's like the beauty of Ryerson. One of the things that our engineering society has recently done is we have a women in engineering student group that's starting up this year, which I'm really excited about and happy about. It's kind of tailored towards specific networking programs for women in engineering, like breaking the glass ceiling kind of thing, which I'm really excited to see about. Kind of gives women a little bit more of an opportunity to network and kind of compete with themselves versus trying to work twice as hard as other people in their program in those same positions. In general, Ryerson engineering is very community-based. We're all very close. We're all very supportive of each other, which is really great to have. That in itself is priceless. All of the girls and women in this program that I've been able to reach out to for support of any kind have always been there and have always been responsive, which is really great. I'll pass on to Chloe now.
Yeah, so similar to the other panelists, there's definitely a lot of student groups there that do outreach a lot to women in STEM. One thing I liked in my first year was in my engineering design course, there was one prof that was a woman, and they were planning a lesson for the day, and one of the things she talked about was like, oh, we were planning to show you a video But I didn't want to show the video because it had visibly white males in a team. And that is something like she brought up as a topic and was like, what is your opinions on it? What do you think about this type of leadership? What should be done about it? Like she wanted to bring in more videos that probably showed more leaders of women, but also showed different backgrounds and cultures in it, because that itself is what engineering was for us. So that definitely did spark a lot of conversation for the whole class to bring up things like, yeah, like we definitely want to see more leaders and that are women. And especially in engineering, it should be something that's taught at an education level, especially.
Okay, great. And lastly, you guys are gonna talk about your experience or some opportunities and or resources that you found. And starting off with Chloe.
Yeah, so definitely a lot was the groups and clubs that were around campus. So you'll find probably a lot, like there's a women in engineering one that I'm a part of in UT. You'll probably find more in like other things. So I know there's some in STEM as well. So you can definitely get a part with them, and they usually have a lot of resources available um, for you. I guess I'll pass it on to Nika if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, so Ryerson, like I mentioned, the student group that they just started this year, we also have a couple of Instagram accounts in general, like Ontario Women in Engineering Instagram accounts, which is really nice to see other women in the field succeeding in their fields and what they're doing. It's very encouraging, for which March is National Engineering Month. And so this past year, what we did is we dedicated an entire week to like women in engineering. And the way that it was kind of celebrated and represented was pictures from the past of past engineers that helped in, that are known for certain projects and certain theories and everything, were recreated by women in our program. It was really nice to see, kind of showcase where we've come from, where we're at now, and like what the future holds. It was really nice to see. It was very beautiful piece, but there's a lot of opportunities and resources. I went to a women in STEM panel just like this as well, which was really nice to see a lot of women who were also Ryerson graduates kind of excel in their field, and like how they overcame microaggressions and such as well. So there's always opportunities and resources happening at, I'm sure, any university, for women in STEM to reach out and to kind of take those opportunities and excel. I'll pass it on to Vicky now.
I just want to reiterate what Chloe and Nika have said about the different clubs and student groups that exist in university. There's so many of them. And like once you find a group of like-minded people who share the same experiences or share like similar identities with you, they're a really, really good resource. In terms of opportunities, there are, like I said, there are some like grants specific to women, and there are some like outreach groups that cater specifically to women. So like just like look out for any like workshops that are kind of specific to you as a woman if you're like kind of feeling marginalized in your department. Also, there are tons of different opportunities for you to like increase visibility to younger kids. So there's so many different outreach groups that you can like work with to try and increase visibility of like young girls, and those outreach groups are super fulfilling.
Okay, great, thank you. Now we've ended our panel presentation portion of this workshop, and before we move on to Q&A, we do have some resources here, and don't worry about remembering them. We will have them up. We'll have this presentation up on our website as well. So now we'll move to the Q&A, and once again, if you do have a question for a particular panelist, please just indicate that in your question, and then you can also privately message me if you feel more comfortable doing so. Now, our first question is, what are some misconceptions about your program and or classes? And Nika?
Yeah, so biomedical engineering is like a really new field. and so it's not offered at a lot of universities, and at Ryerson it's been around for a while, but we're kind of a small program. There's about 80 of us, and what's like a really common misconception is that, oh, like biomedical engineering is like so diverse, like there's a lot of girls in it, like there's more girls than guys, and like it's true, more commonly girls do go to biomedical engineering. I think it's because of the biology component, but the reality is that it's still like it's still unbalanced, and like when you're working with your male counterparts, it's still difficult to kind of get your opinion and be taken seriously. So you have to work really hard at that, which is something that I've noticed. Yeah, so there's a lot more girls in biomedical engineering, that is true, but it's still not as diverse as you would expect it to be, I would say.
Okay, great. Chloe or Vicky, do you have anything else to add? Or okay. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So I guess it'll be for you too. I've heard that U of T has a very competitive environment. What do you guys think about that?
I guess I could start. So specifically with engineering science, it's one of the most competitive programs to get into. Definitely, so it does attract a lot of competitive people, I think, in marks wise. So yeah, that is definitely something I was really nervous about, because personally for me, as much as I love like grades and how like I got probably a great amount like grades in high school, like at the end of the day, it's really who you are and what you value. So personally, I valued a lot of experience and extracurriculars, and that itself made me stand out maybe in my classes from other people who only focused on marks. For competitiveness, like I found like they're not really trying to kick you out in engineering specifically. So for us, like honestly, they're just trying to keep you in the program. So they always have like for first year, it's like a lower average. Like if you get at least a 50 in all your courses, you're still in. Like they're never going to kick you out. And at that point, getting a 50 is mostly just completing all your work and doing all the exams and trying to study for them as much as possible. So that itself was not really feeling like I was being, I guess, competitive. But it's also your mindset. So if you feel like you need to compete with people, then that's how you're feeling. Personally, I didn't feel like it because I had other things going for me that did not matter on marks anymore. And yeah, I guess I'll pass it on to Vicky.
Yeah, everything that Chloe said for engineering applies pretty much for this life sciences and sciences in general. Like U of T does have a pretty competitive first year environment in that the grades, your grades are probably going to be much lower than what you were expecting and what you were used to in high school. But like Chloe said, they're not trying to kick you out of life sciences. They're not trying to kick you out of university. But a lot of your experiences will matter more than grades. So for example, I did several different research experiments, and I was also involved in so many different outreach groups that was what made me stand out. And so I think if you figure out what you like to do, it's not just about grades, it's not just about competing with who has the highest GPA.
Okay, great. And I guess maybe just adding on, just to clarify the question, like how is the environment when meeting new people? Are there any fun clubs, for example?
So U of T has so many different clubs. So I didn't really have difficulty looking for like clubs or people to meet, or like I didn't really have trouble finding people who had similar interests with me and then like connecting with them. And so in terms of like that kind of competitive environment, it's if once you find a supportive network, I think that you'll be able to fit in and feel like right at home.
I guess adding on to that, I found that engineering, you're all kind of struggling together. So that itself is a community. So you'll find like it's not even competing anymore. At that point, you're trying to complete assignments by the due date. So you'll find like in engineering, like it's very tight knit and you're probably in like a study room together, completing the assignment together, even though you're not supposed to work beside each other. So I found that being like, I guess, how I really found my people. And how I really enjoyed the community there was in engineering. So yeah, I guess if Nika wants to add on to anything.
Yeah, sure. I obviously don't go to U of T, but I think like in general, in terms of like what Vicky said about your grades, I think one thing that you should keep in mind is that if you were top of your class in high school, when you go into first year, you're now with everyone that was top of their class in high school. All of you were in the same boat in high school. All of you were getting the same grades, and that's how you got to that point, which is awesome. But the environment is like a total shift. It's a total change, and it takes a while getting used to it. It took me a while to get used to. It was like a huge slap to my face. But everybody struggles in first year. That's also what you need to remember, is that it's not just you. And in terms of community, like at U of T and at Ryerson, and like I'm sure at any other university, whatever program, everything is community based. You have to find people that you can also study with, but people that you can also enjoy your time with. And I think those things are really important too.
Okay, great. And our next question is, do you have any tips for picking between the physics, chem, engineering, and the biochem life science stream? And did any of you guys struggle with that choice? And Nika, go ahead.
Yeah, so I, for like most of my life, convinced myself that I was going to be a doctor. I was like, it's going to happen. I'm going to med school, like done deal. And then, like I mentioned before, when I got to grade 11 and 12, I realized that I really needed to have something with math in my life. And I really I had to sit and think, I'm like, what kind of engineering do I want to do? Like, what if I hate it? What if I go into life science and then I don't want to do research? Or yeah, I was really worried about like waking up one day and deciding like I made the worst decision of my life. But I think you really have to pick something that will challenge you academically, if that's like something that you're into, but also something that you're passionate about. Because that's the thing with like STEM programs, if you don't like it, you won't do it. Like that's how it works. But it was a hard decision to make, but you have to really kind of like have those conversations with yourself, like, oh, how much did I like this in high school? Did I enjoy this course? And I know that sometimes like teachers can ruin some subjects for you. Like I've been there, I get that. But definitely try to indulge in the material and see if it's something that you really see yourself doing. And it's never too late to change your mind if you decide that's not something you want to do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Okay, Vicky?
Exactly what Nika said about changing your mind. Like you can take a course in chem and absolutely hate it, and then decide to take a course in physics and absolutely love it. Like you have that option. Also, these fields are slowly becoming less mutually exclusive. Like now there's biophysics, now there's biochem, right? So like there's so many different courses that like will cover a broad range of subjects, and a lot of those courses are available in first and second year. And so if you are struggling to choose between a specific field, whether that's like physics or chem or med or research or anything, like take one course or take a couple courses in those fields, like really explore your options, because the courses are there, and they're you never know what course you'll enjoy.
Okay, and our next question is, could you guys possibly elaborate on your experiences with researching or interning, and how did you find or apply to these opportunities? And Vicky?
So I can only speak to the research side. So the number one thing is to make yourself visible to profs, to grad students, to your TAs. Like if you really want to do research, make it clear to them, like talk to them before or after class, ask them about their research, like Google them, because usually their research interests, their websites are all going to be like available, and anybody can like look and find their like papers or their research subjects. And so like figure out which prof you want to work with, talk to them, email them, like cold email them. And there are several different like platforms, at least at U of T, where there are like work studies, or they're called like research opportunity programs, ROPs, for first year, second year, third year, fourth year. So like literally just Google ROPs or Google work study, and then U of T or Ryerson. And a lot of those profs are always looking for people like undergrads to join their lab. And once you're kind of in one lab, the profs will talk to each other, and like you'll either stay with that lab, or if you want to try something else, they could refer you to a different lab. So just getting your foot through the door, not through, getting your foot in the door and making yourself, like, appealing yourself to the professors and the grad students who you want to work with.
Yeah, and Nika, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. In terms of like internships, I personally haven't applied to any just yet. It's not in my plan just yet. But I know with how it works at Ryerson is they have a portal for you to be able to find jobs or anything. There's a lot of networking events being held at Ryerson. I'm sure they do this on other universities as well. There's always opportunities to put yourself out there and to make relationships with profs and employers. Even if you're in first year, I would say attend these events, because you can find someone, take their name down, so that in the future you can be like, oh, hey, like I saw you speak at this event, like in this year, and like it really like resonated with me. I definitely would, like, I did it when I was in first year, even though I had nothing to network with, but it was just really nice to see like what the future of your field holds as well. You can kind of see where the development is in terms of like technology, in terms of different types of research. So in terms of internships, like there's definitely opportunities to do it. There's opportunities to find them. You can also find them in your own way, but your university can definitely support you in finding those opportunities.
Okay, and Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, for me, so through the summer, I got to intern a lot with like startups, and something that worked with me especially was like honestly like make it a practice to cold email, cold call, or not even cold call, like maybe people don't want calls, but cold message them on LinkedIn. I found that even asking for a simple like 15-minute call, 30-minute call really worked. Because to them it's like, oh, it's 15 minutes, it won't take much of my time. And then through that conversation, really bring up what your passions are, what you really want to learn, because maybe they can offer something out of that. So that really worked for me, especially since these people are extremely busy. They don't have time to really give you a full position or maybe a full title of an intern, but even if they take you up on their wing, you can learn a lot from just shadowing them like throughout the summer. And who knows, you might even get something out of it.
Okay, and just for our last question, is there anything you guys wish you knew before entering your field? Yeah, Chloe.
Definitely like that I was not stuck with engineering. Like as we mentioned, like it's so like you can easily just switch out or pick something you're really passionate in. Um, and I found like I wasn't even stuck with the title of engineering. Like since I discovered new interest in like entrepreneurship, that's not something really like engineers really go towards, but I don't have to like leave my title to be an engineer. I can always be like, yeah, like maybe one day I can work with startups and be something else, like be their technical founder or something. Like I felt like being in engineering was not what I was limited to, and I definitely wish I knew that, because I was really stuck between, oh, what am I going to identify as myself as, like a life sci student or an engineer? And I'm like, at the end of the day, I could always switch to life sci, or I can come back to eng if I really wanted to, and like that was something I was interested in.
Yeah, and Nika.
Yeah, in terms of like not being limited to engineering, like the other side of that as well, is don't leave your passions in high school, I would say. You'd be really surprised what your university offers. I had a really big passion for like performing and like live theater and, you know, theatrical performing arts. And so I was able to find that at Ryerson within my engineering community, which was a huge deal for me. I thought like, oh, I'm not going to have time to do these things anymore. Like I have to leave them at the door. They keep you sane. They kind of help you step out of your bubble. So definitely continue those and pursue those. The other thing as well, definitely have a little bit more faith in yourself. First year is hard. It's very hard. And it's really hard to adjust, but you just have to have a little bit of faith in yourself that you will get through it. You're gonna struggle, you might fall down, but it's really important to pick yourself back up and to just push through, and like you will get there and you'll find something that you love. Even if you don't enjoy some of your courses in first year, in second year, once you start getting a little bit more specific, you'll really find something to enjoy.
And Vicky, anything to add?
everything that Nika and Chloe said, yes, for sure. I definitely resonate with that. One thing that I really wish I knew as I was entering first year and as I was entering my program is to really take advantage of creating interpersonal relationships. So sure, like grades matter and go to class and like, like do your research and get that data, but also like talk to like other people in your department, or like learn how to communicate science, work with outreach groups, stuff like that. Like build these skills that aren't really taught to you in person, like in a lecture, but that you can like build and develop these skills that are more interpersonal, because that will really, really help you in the future if you want to like switch career trajectories, or if you want to collaborate with someone else, like you built a network of people who you've already developed strong relationships with. So that's something that I wish I knew and worked harder on in my undergrad.
Okay, awesome. So that was our last question. And now that we've reached the end of our workshop, we would like to thank everyone again for joining in. And we will be sharing this presentation on our website, so be sure to check it out if you forgot some of the things that we covered. And finally, just before you go, a reminder to please sign up for our mentorship program if you're interested. Follow us on our Instagram at Side by Side Agency to stay updated with our content and future events. And if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns for us, feel free to either email or DM us. Thank you again. Bye.
Bye, good luck.